All right, guys, this is Joe. Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. The greatest thing has happened to us. Miss Lady Charles has introduced us to someone who's actually from Kentucky and actually made a movie that did not suck. And his name is not John Carpenter. Adam Stovall, thank you so much for being on Bonehead Weekly. I can't think of a better compliment. I know it did not suck. But what I was going before we get started, what I want to say is she pitched me this idea, then I added you, and then I hadn't had a chance to message you. And when I did, I was like, yeah, we're going to watch it. And so part of me, and you know this, you have to know this, you're a film geek. Part of me is like, oh God, boy, I hope this goes well. And I'm going to give you one of the best compliments I can give you.
Lady Charles had the same moment. Trust me.
Did she really?
Yes. Yeah.
She hasn't messaged me back.
This could get really awkward if it's bad.
Yeah. She didn't message me back because I only have one critique of the movie. I'm going to ask you about it later, though. And she has yet to message me back about this. So here's what it is. Not the critique. I was sitting there giggling and enjoying it. And what I really, really liked about the movie was it was well written and the acting did not suck. and what I mean by that is that's where I see so many low budget films and sometimes micro budget films, depending on what definition you want to put to them. I mean, there's one of those things they skip out on. They get their buddy George, and their buddy George is funny at a party.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come across as a screen. And I was so impressed with your cast and your writing. And
thank you.
And James texted me 20 minutes, 20 minutes, James. And what did you say?
I really, and I was going to say the writing of the film. Matter of fact, I actually I stopped the film. I paused it because there were a couple lines where I'm like, no, I've got to do this now. And so on Twitter, I literally stopped and I did the couple lines from the movie that just, I mean, they're funny, but they're also just great. Like, it wouldn't matter where you encountered these lines. They make you go, oh yeah. And I was laughing you're not real, ghost. And we're not called that. And I was just the back and forth there. I literally stopped and tweeted it and was like, you all have to see this movie. You have to, I need other people to see this because there's so much that's going on there. And it is the way I said it on Twitter was, it really is, if you held a gun to my head and said, what can you compare it to? To me, it's like As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson and Beetlejuice and a little bit of other stuff. And but I was sitting there the entire, and it's also its own complete thing. And I really like As Good as It Gets is one of those movies that when I'm working or something like that, I put on in the background. I'm like, this I've got to get. I rented it, but you're going to sell a couple DVDs because I've got to own it now because I want to go back and see it again. And that's probably the best compliment I can get was I've already like, now I want to hear these lines again and I want to see them. I want to play it out a couple different times and see. And but the lines of dialogue, I found myself also, I was emailing myself lines from the film after it was over. I went back and put it back and rewatched a couple scenes just because I like the wordplay and the language it's fun, but it's got heart. And so I could go on, but no, Joe's absolutely right. I had to stop myself and go, oh, wait.
Hold on, before you talk about this, the movie.
Thanks, guys. This was a really fun show.
Hold on. We'll be done.
Just a delight to stop by.
we'll be done kissing your ass in about 30 seconds.
Good. Okay.
So the Ghost of Mrs. Muir. I was watching it and I was thinking there's so many other, right? I'm assuming you've seen it. You had to have saw it because I watched your movie, and that's not a bad thing. But I'm saying
I hadn't seen it.
You hadn't seen it? Have you seen it now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there are some.
Oh yeah, totally. There's so many comparisons. No, I really hadn't seen it.
I'm going to judge you a little bit right now that the Hill Jack from Eastern Kentucky. I'm judging you a little bit right now. The Hill Jack from Eastern Kentucky had seen that you hadn't. But keep going.
Man, they've been making movies for a very long time, and I've
know,
only been
I
watching
know,
them for
I
42 years. So,
know. Kathy will
I'll
message
catch
me.
up eventually.
She messages me something. I go, damn you, you Australian temptress. Just send me something.
Oh my God. I like when I listened to that episode, it really was just get the notes app. And like, I was like, I never even heard of some of these. But it's the same thing talking to her. I went home and was just like, hey, Arrow, I need Basket Case apparently, because, she says it's the best home video release there's ever been. And when she says it, you believe her.
Just do it.
Yeah.
She has that accent.
Thank you.
And she's pretty. So you just kind of do, because we're dudes and we just do it.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, whatever you say. But where were you going?
But she knows her shit. Like, let's not just be objectifying assholes here.
No,
she knows far more about genre cinema than I do.
No, she totally does. But what I was going to say is I've totally forgot what I was going to say. So go ahead with what your point was about after James got done kissing your ass.
The point was the ass kissing. No, I really appreciate it. McLeod Andrews is also a Kentucky native, and I feel bad that he's not on this with us. But he's from Louisville. Good old Louisville boy.
I saw that. And the other actress is from Australia.
Nope.
That's what
Natalie Walker. Natalie Walker,
serious?
originally from Virginia, but is based in New York now.
Well, did you? All right, Google some stuff because they've got it wrong.
Oh, you can always trust what the internet says.
Well, I didn't have any other way of researching this, damn it.
Let me pull my faculty thing. Mr. Lewis, if you would not use Wikipedia as an academic source.
Son of a bitch.
Let us take this opportunity to raise our bourbons to Google.
Yeah, I guess I could pour a little bit of Four Roses here. I've got
good man.
So what I have several questions here as we go through, because I want to talk to you a little bit about the making, and I want to talk to you about your history and because we're all from Kentucky, I want to talk a little bit about that. But another compliment I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to stop with the compliment so much.
Thank you, because it really chafes at my Midwestern heritage to hear compliments so much.
It does me too. And by the way, Kentucky is Midwest. Nobody ever remembers that. People it kind of joined the South after the Civil War.
Well, one of my favorite things about because I'm from Northern Kentucky. I grew up in Erlanger and Florence,
which
Kentucky.
Isn't real Kentucky. That's just Southern Cincinnati.
Well, this is my point. The rest of Kentucky views Northern Kentucky as part of Ohio. The rest of Ohio views Cincinnati as part of Kentucky. Cincinnati can't stand Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky can't stand Cincinnati. I feel like I come from the most contentious place in the world.
Everything you just said.
My inner turmoil is germane, let's at least say.
Everything you just said was the fucking gospel. I mean, it
really
was cheers. It was accurate. He's absolutely right. A friend of ours lives right outside of Florence, and it's everything you say is true. But what an easy trope would have been to make the dude a dumbass. And you didn't.
Yeah, where's the fun in that?
Yeah, but am I wrong? That would have been the easy thing. You make him affable. You make him interesting. You make him have a sense of humor so she will enjoy being around him. But the easy thing would have made him a bumbling Adam Sandler dumbass who's going around and is kind of a loser and can't get another job, has been hired this. And I was sitting there watching that going, any minute he's going to fall. Any minute he's going to. And what I meant was not the character. It meant you. Any minute he's going to end up in that cliche kind of thing. And you didn't.
Thank you. We made this movie for very little money. And both McLeod and I feel like when you're working with such a small budget and you're working at this level of filmmaking, like all you really have is novelty. And sadly, at this point in American cinema, to treat rural America and blue collar workers with respect is frankly novel.
I agree.
I've been a maintenance man. I've loaded airplanes. I've done a lot of jobs that would be comic relief in a studio film. But we got to kind of tell the story that excited us and make the movie that excited us. And part of what excited us was let's empathize with, as I'm sure we will get into, a societal taboo in the ending. But before even that, let's empathize with characters that never get empathy, that are always played for laughs. Because most filmmakers, especially most American filmmakers, which I'm far more comfortable talking about. I don't know as many international filmmakers personally, but most American filmmakers come from money. They've never had a real job. So it's easy for them to put a character in publishing or something and be like, I don't know, have her be around books or magazines and it looks like she does something during the day. And then we can focus on what we want to talk about, which is nothing. I don't like that. Representation matters. And I wanted to make something that, especially when we made this movie for less than the cost of a base level Mercedes. So when you're making something at that level, there's no guarantee you'll ever make a second movie. And I wanted to make something that in 20 years, if I've never made something else, I can still throw it in and be proud of what we did. And so that was kind of that's kind of how we approach that.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, James.
Well, I was going to say, and there's a scene that honestly, the toilet cleaning scene when he's working on the toilet and all
everybody's favorite scene.
It's laugh out loud.
But he's on the phone, and it is funny. But at the same time, I was just sitting there going, "It's all true." It's funny because, and not to be cliche, but it's true. The entire line of, "Well, if you ever need anything, let me know." What did I just ask you for? And I literally was sitting there going, it was like, oh, that's. But it's true. I mean, I think about all these things that we hear people say, and I think, to get to some of the latter parts of the film, it really does sum up what we do see. It's, if you need anything, let me know. But then do we really mean it, or how often does that actually play out? And so that entire scene, I just stopped and went, okay, that there's something there that is, yes, there's a lot of humor, but there's a legitimate social message there as well of, are we just trained to say, well, if you need anything, let me know, and then not have any substance to that?
Yeah.
Or maybe I've examined it. I don't
know. No, I think you're exactly right. Like, as written, the phone call and then the immediate, like, oh my God, up until I hate people, I don't hate people. Like, that was all written. When he makes the toilet talk was an improv. McLeod had that idea and said, hey, just leave the camera running. Made the toilet talk, and I ruined the take laughing, and we had to redo it a few times. I eventually just walked away, like, focus is locked, just go. There's no way I'm going to make it through with a straight face.
That's a fascinating thing, though, because that really did add. It's a great scene.
I mean, the movie is about alienation and isolation and a need for connection.
Even the ends, I watched the full credits because I'm that guy, and you end with the line of, "This movie is dedicated to everyone who makes us feel less alone," or something. I may be misquoting slightly there, but that I got to that part and I was like, "What a great!" I mean, just there's so much going on in the film, and like I said, I'm going to have to watch it again, and I'm not just as Joe would give me credit for, but it did make me actually think about, what am I guilty of that we also see in that film sometimes, of meaning well but not doing well?
I'm 42 years old, and at this point in my life, I've kind of learned that, like, one of the biggest villains is timing. So often what our lives come down to is saying something when the other person isn't ready for it, or doing something or being something or whatever, and the other person's there, or the other person doing something and you're not ready for it. Like, we are constantly butting into each other. And as someone who has struggled with depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation, I've been acutely aware of the whole, like, everyone is going through a struggle you know nothing about thing. I think about it all the time. And I think I told Kathy one time, like, I have an inherent distrust of my own perception. I understand that like blue isn't the same blue to everybody. And like, once you know that, then you're just like, well, this is, everything's up for, wherever not up for debate, but up for where the chips may fall. We live at the mercy of the universe, and it's insane to me that like we get so ridiculously lucky that we find people who love us and understand us and empathize. And when you, especially when you're dealing with stuff, growing up in Northern Kentucky as a sensitive boy in the 80s and 90s, did not feel understood very often. And I had to fight very hard to get to the point of,
I am so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you stopped recording for half a second. We don't
is
know
your
what
internet still shitty?
They replaced God, you did do your research. That's okay. We researched each other because I was going to say, why the fuck did you think J.J. Abrams? But we're going to go with that was the next question.
Okay.
They replaced the
I can't wait
inside.
I can't wait to tell that story.
Yeah, we really did pay attention, by the way. He got the quote at the
Okay.
end, and I was going to ask you about JJ.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, who the hell knows what I was saying now?
Oh, I don't remember.
No.
Raising in Northern Kentucky. You were talking
Well,
about.
no, I was going to say, so talking about that and being that sense of alienation and things like that is what you were talking about. And as you were saying it, I mean, this may come as a shocker, but I grew up in the Appalachian area of Kentucky, obsessed with Star Trek. And it turns out that did not make me the big, I was not, let's say, popular or liked or not beat up in high school.
I thought all the Ashland ladies loved Data.
What's really funny is I have somebody I went to high school with opened up a comic book store. And it was when the Marvel movies were starting to be big. And he said it was hilarious to him that the people who used to pick on us and quite frankly sometimes beat us up were coming in and being like, oh, this is cool. I wish I would have knew about this before. And he said one time somebody came in and said that, and he said, I just broke down and screamed, you could have talked to us instead of hitting us. And I'm like, yeah, that pretty much sums up high school. Thank you.
Also, Adam, in his defense, he's an original series guy. It's even worse. It's not even like it's the next generation. I mean, he's just more punchable.
I like them all, but can we at least agree that Scotty's the best engineer? Okay.
Absolutely no, but the idea that anyone would punch anyone over the wonder that is Leonard Nimoy is inexcusable.
There you go.
Yeah.
But you were talking about growing up and not necessarily being a sensitive young lad and not necessarily having anyone understand your sensitivity or probably your interests, because we are almost the same age. I'm slightly older than you. And I grew up in rural Eastern Kentucky and what they call a holler. And I get it. Only difference is the sense I was fortunate I was never bullied. But I never felt, I was always funny. You can be fat.
Bully for you.
Right? You know what I mean? Though you can kind of be fat and funny. Plus, I was a pissed off, long-haired kid after my parents' divorce. I'm a different guy. But
yeah.
I never felt like I belong either. But it's a different time now, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Like,
especially in the last 15,
just the
years.
evolution of language has been amazing to watch.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the kids are going to save us all.
Or make it all worse.
I did just visit the high school from which I graduated, and found out that the kids these days are feral. So, I mean, they're much more understanding of human weakness, but they are also shitting on walls. So who knows?
Well,
it could really go either way.
Which high school did you go to?
Well, no, that's a trend, Joe.
Are
you not keeping up with your TikTok trends, Joe? We actually got a message about this, that there is some TikTok trend going around about demolishing the school bathroom, throwing some sort of glitter on the floor or sand or something. It has to be pink or something. I literally was reading because I got the message from the principal. If your child is involved in this, please help stop them. And I was like, if my child was involved in this, who's driving them to the craft store to get the pink sand or glitter or whatever? Because it ain't me. And I'm not saying I wouldn't drive them, but I wouldn't drive them if I said, what is this for again? Oh, I'm going to demolish the school bathroom.
It has to be really hard as a parent to ask the question, honey, did you shit on any walls today?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
it didn't
I have
occur
a good
to
relationship.
me.
I have two kids. I have a pretty good relationship with them. They tend to tell me a lot of different things. But I think the first time I say, how did school go today? Oh, it was good. Math, I did okay in. And, when I was trying to poop on the wall, it came out very nice. It's very spherical. It left a nice design on the wall. Really, son?
The
Is that
concrete wall doesn't burn well. Yeah.
Oh my God, I have a Jackson Pollock joke. Anyway, so what back to
throw it against the wall and see what
happens. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways you could have went with that. So why were you at your high school? Were you just visiting old friends, or were you speaking?
Visiting. I was back. The movie was screening for a few nights, and I got to speak at the college I attended, Northern Kentucky University.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine teaches. Actually, no, she's the instructional coach at Boone County High School. So I got to go down and visit and see my favorite teacher and thank her for being honest with me, because I was 18 years old and she told me, you are the student teachers love and hate because you're smart but you don't apply yourself. And I got to tell her that I eventually figured out my work ethic, and just really thank her, which was great. And then toured, because this campus is completely different now. And it was just walking around. What was great is they have this wall of class photos from every year, and my year is the only one not up, and it's very clear that it's been taken down for some reason. So I don't know if my class has been canceled or something, but class of 97 not up.
See, I'm class of Go ahead.
In my mind, it was like, did you happen to go to school with the Unabomber and Jack the Ripper? And it's like in my mind, the image is you and a bunch of people in top hats with knives, and you're the only one standing there smiling. That's the image I wish was missing.
It's far more interesting than the truth.
So, James, I'm the class of 96, and I have to ask you this question, and then I'm going to tell you a Stephen King quote once you give me your answer. Did you enjoy high school?
No.
Good.
No.
Good. All my close, personal, deepest friends, I like people on both sides of the aisle, those who did and those who didn't. And even though I wasn't bullied, it was still the worst. At 43 years old, it was the worst 4 years of my life. Still, I can look back and go, this was just an awful period, an awful time. And Stephen King has the quote, is if you enjoyed high school, it's not that I dislike you, I just fundamentally don't trust you. Who could enjoy that time in their lives of that development?
The last 2 years, I played football when I started. So, there's an inherent lack of accountability there.
Yeah.
And then my last 2 years, I was in a theater troupe. And no one from my school had ever been in it. And I don't think anyone from my school has ever been in it since. But so they had no communication with the place that ran the theater troupe. So they didn't know the schedule. So if I didn't want to be in school, I would just say I had a show that day, and I could go around and get all my work and then just leave. So I would constantly just go to and I mean, I was a nerd. I was going to the movies and the library, and I wasn't going anywhere cool. But I mean, they were cool to me. But yeah, I had a lot of really bad teachers, a lot of bad teachers, which is why it was so easy to name the one that I would want to visit, because she was really good. And that held true even when I went to college. I had a professor one time get the number of continents wrong, and they were a poli-sci professor. And I was just like, you know what? I think I'm done. I don't trust any of you. So, see where we are now. But yeah, I did not enjoy the experience of high school at all. And I don't seek to revisit it or relive it.
That's what is interesting. And I think with social media, we see that now. I don't know why, but I'm on social media, and occasionally people I went to high school with add me. And it's so funny. We had our 20th anniversary, and they kept going, you should come. And I literally sat for a day going, well, if they really want me. And then I stopped and went, these people couldn't stand me. I don't know what they think has changed. And what I realized was that I've done okay. I'm not phenomenal, but I don't know. So I ended up not going.
Well, you're not dead, James.
It almost feels less like they want you there and more that they just want everyone there to fulfill their idea of nostalgia.
Yeah.
And some of them peaked. that was
Right.
the best time of their lives.
Yeah.
Which used to bother me, and now I just find sad because I choose to live my life as if I have not peaked.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's just every time I do something else and check another box, oh yeah, here's another step. I just choose to live my life that way. I want ambition. I want to do things. And some of them,
Yeah, like the
it won't
idea
get any
that
better.
it depresses me, the idea that like the best music has already been made. And I feel like you can apply that to everything. The idea that your best day has already happened,
Yes.
you know, like when I talk to much older people, when I talk to people in their 80s and 90s, like, and they're just talking about how much they want to die, I kind of get it, because you are constantly confronted with how irrelevant society has decided you are now. You know, like it's kind of demonstrable that your best days are behind you. And that has just gotta be terrible.
Yeah.
You know, and if your best days happened when you were 16 years old, like, oh, I don't even know how to deal with that bucket of shit.
It is a bucket of shit. It is. And I see them on social media, and we're going to get off this topic in a second, but we don't get a chance to talk about it. I see them on social media, and I think, oh, they're still, you can see them. They'll add you, and they're still talking. It's the same people. It's the same groups.
You know,
it hasn't changed.
A friend of ours once made the observation, and it comes into my head sometimes. We would be driving somewhere, and he would literally stop, and we'd be driving through some small town, and he just occasionally would just look around and he goes, some people live and die just here. Here. They never see anything else. And I always thought about that, and it still comes into my head occasionally. Like I'm going to call out a place, and if any of our listeners are from this area and want to come and attack me, my name is Joe Lewis, and I live at but there's a very small place in Mississippi called
Docs.
His name is Adam Stovall. You can check out A Ghost Waits on iTunes, Amazon.
You son of a bitch.
Anyway, no, but there's a small place in Mississippi called Enterprise, Mississippi, and there's two exits off the interstate for this place: North Enterprise and South Enterprise. And I was driving once, and I had to use the facilities. I needed gas, and I saw this place that gas station. It listed a gas station that listed 4 restaurants. And I pull off, and they were like clear cutting, like the forest in this area. And I'm like, okay, cool. It says gas and restaurants about 3 miles this way. I get there. It's a 1-pump gas station, and there's 3 quote unquote restaurants inside this gas station, but it's one guy that just goes between the different stations. Now, I'm not knocking Enterprise, Mississippi. I got gas. I was able to use the facilities, but it was one of those things. I was driving, and that quote came back to my head of some people live and die in Enterprise, Mississippi. Not knocking it, please, again.
And by the way, that's fine.
And that's fine.
It's just not good for me.
And that's
not
it. And
there's anything wrong with that.
But it's true. No, Adam, that's the thing that I didn't realize till I was in my 30s, that was just fine for those folks.
If you're really happy, if you're fulfilled, and that's the thing that it's going back to your quote about people in their 80s and 90s. One of my favorite, and I'm hoping I can live my life this way to kind of speak to that. I'm married. My wife's grandfather.
You married your wife's grandfather?
No, I'm married, and my wife's grandfather passed away. I think he was 96.
Where the fuck is this going?
Hold on. Let me get to the point, Joe.
Very biblical.
He was probably one of those people that was like that. And then he got a diagnosis that he had cancer. And that night he went home, and my wife's grandmother was still alive as well. She made dinner, and she made Brussels sprouts or something. And she said, well, I'll fix your plate. What do you want? And she said, hey, do you want a lot of Brussels sprouts? And he goes, I don't want Brussels sprouts. And she said, well, Douglas, you've had Brussels sprouts every year since I've known you. And he goes, I'm going to be honest with you. I never liked them. I ate them because you made them. But now that I got cancer, I'm just going to lay all my cards on the table. And I thought about, what does that mean? How great is that? And that's how he lived. He lived about another year. And it was just like, I'm going to do what I want to do within reason. I mean, he wasn't jumping Harleys over the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He was like, you know what? I want to go see something. I'm just going to go see it. And so I'm hoping that long that, I will have that sort of thing instead of the please put a pillow over my head in this. But
I have a feeling we're going to revisit that theme during this conversation. But I know you're dying to ask me about JJ. So
yes. Well, also I was about to tell James we need to shut the hell up because we clearly had a guest this week. So
I know. I'm sorry.
JJ, why did you thank him?
Okay. So I was a film journalist before I worked in production, and I won't get into the whole story, but I ended up getting an exclusive interview with him. I had to jump through some hoops. Didn't know that I was jumping through hoops. Just thought, oh, this is what happens when you want to talk to somebody who has a huge movie coming out. We got word there would be an email interview. I submitted all my questions, and then we get word that it's going to be a phone interview, and I'm going to have 20 minutes with him. Turns out this is an exclusive. He had reviewed everybody's questions, and I was the one chosen. That's cool. The reason I was chosen is that I knew, because I'm not a dummy and I like J.J. Abrams, that the one movie, like, he's putting out Super 8. So the one movie he's not going to talk about is Super 8. So all my questions were about the road to Super 8. And one of them, and I told him, I said, I could ask you, we could fill this entire thing with questions about Alias. I love Alias. I have one question about Lost. Before Lost premiered, it's not like the world was clamoring for an hour drama about a time-traveling island. How do you do that? And he said, the thing is, you have to have faith that you're not alone in this world. If you want to see something, somebody else wants to see it too.
Yeah.
And as someone who grew up feeling absolutely alone in this world, that kind of opened up my brain and became a North Star for me. Because what it told me was, write personally and write honestly and write something that you want to see, because you are probably not the only person in the world that wants to see it. And if it's something that you acutely want to see, that's because, at least for me, it's because it doesn't exist. It's much easier not to write a movie than to write a movie. So if I have an idea that's already been done, I'll just pop some popcorn and watch that bitch. So I kind of don't really start working until I don't think it works, which is just say I haven't seen it work, and then I have a puzzle to solve.
Yeah.
And so I always have JJ in my head when I'm writing, like, have faith you're not alone. That was a huge thing for me to hear at the time.
It's a beautiful story. I got a follow-up for that. When you were skipping class in high school and being alone, what were you watching? What were you going to the movies to see in Northern Kentucky?
I don't know why this is the one I remember. It's a dog shit movie.
Oh, it's okay.
But I remember going to see Anaconda.
So fun.
Not like, I've never seen any of the sequels. It has no bearing on my life, but that's the one I remember skipping school to see.
These guys give me shit all the time. There's a movie with Treat Williams called Deep Rising that I absolutely, I adore it. And he was on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast he gets asked about it all the time, even though it's Stephen Sommers before he did The Mummy in his craziness. And it's just a movie that I know sucks. But
I think Kari Wurr was in Anaconda. I really liked Kari Wurr. She did just a ton of B movies and was absolutely somebody that they would cast her because she was gorgeous and would take her clothes off. But I always felt like she was a really good actress that just never got her cred because she would be in what nowadays would be a sci-fi movie. But yeah. I'm pretty sure she was in that. Yeah,
Super Gator versus the Anaconda, or Anaconda NATO. Can we make that work? Can we make that work?
Shark Apocalypse.
Right now, James and I will write it for Asylum and have the first draft in by the end of the weekend. So
yeah, I mean, I've got L8s
We-
on tap. I'm good.
we're
We'll get
good.
caffeinated
We'll
up, and
we'll
I will
ignore
get
our
this-
children. We'll do it for the screenwriting credit alone. You don't even really have to pay us.
Yeah.
So
Sci-fi movies thrive on abandoned children.
Oh my God, that should be the name of this episode.
yes, they really should. They really should. So what was this is a question I ask often, but I'm always I ask it of people I'm interested in. What was it that got you when you were a kid? Was there a movie or a book that kind of bit you and gave you the bug?
The earliest memory I have of like movies matter to me was sitting in my basement on Hallam Avenue in Edgewood, Kentucky, watching the network debut of Back to the Future, during which they were going to show the trailer for Back to the Future 2. And I was holding my Back to the Future storybook, and I had my little Chef Boyardee pizza, and it's just like, I feel like this means something. The
Your
one
Richard
though, that
Dreyfuss
like
and your mashed
really set
potatoes.
me on the path.
Yeah.
The one that really set me on the path though was Pulp Fiction. I saw Pulp Fiction. I helped my dad. My dad and I helped his friend move, his best friend, Jerry Taylor, move into a house in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. And
Been there.
Yep.
Drunk
And we
many times.
went to, oh God. I mean, I was a child, so I don't have that experience, but
I have so many experiences in Mount Sterling. Keep going.
But yeah, we went to, we finished moving him, and we went to Applebee's for dinner, and they had the
drunk
newspaper.
at that Applebee's.
There you go. That's what I'm here for, is just to facilitate memories of drunken
Because
revelry.
we never have anybody who knows where the fuck we're talking about. And I know
Yeah.
where you're talking about. Keep going.
No, he had a newspaper, and there was a big ad for Pulp Fiction, and he said, "Oh, I've heard this is good." So the three of us went to see it, and I remember I was sitting in the row in front of the two of them, and it unspooled. And when it was over, I turned around and said, "Can we do that again?" And they said no. So
were
I had to
15.
wait a couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
15 years. Yeah. 15, 16, maybe.
It's a
I don't know.
perfect
Yeah,
time to
15.
melt your brain.
I mean,
At least you saw
I
it
was
with
also
your
like
dad.
raised in a church. So the idea of a hitman like doing a bullshit Bible verse, like every bit of that movie just like worked for me. My brain was on fire.
I agree.
And I got to thank Quentin for that actually at a Q&A one time. But yeah, that's really Pulp Fiction completely set me on this path.
So to me, it's the most important film made in the last 30 years. Most important American film made in the last at least 30 years.
Okay.
Is Pulp Fiction to me. I agree with you.
I mean, it's a totally fair argument. Yeah.
I mean, you could argue other points to me, and I will listen to them. But to me, it's kind of changed every damn thing. It really did. There's some movies that came out in the 99, and we did a whole episode on it that were influential too. But I don't know that anything had the same impact as, at least you watched it with your dad. I watched it with my mom, and you started having that conversation about the holiest of holies.
My mom. So I came back from the trip an evangelist. I would talk constantly about Pulp Fiction. And so I remember my friends and I went and saw a Tales from the Crypt movie. I do not remember if it was Bordello of Blood or Demon Night, but we went and saw a Tales from the Crypt movie, and my mom and her friend, my friend's mom, went and saw Pulp Fiction. And the look of betrayal on my mom's face walking out of it, I will never forget. And like now, my mom was like, "Oh yeah, it's an American classic. Like it meant so much." But at the time, Adam, why do you like something that says the N word and the F word so much?
Well, you mentioned,
like, I don't know, our neighbors do.
Well, you mentioned, growing up in a church and things like that. Did that, and I guess that you kind of got to this already, did that impact what was considered? Because I find it curious how parents navigate what their children can watch. And now that I have kids, I'm playing that game as well. So, I mean, how was that navigated? Because in my family, for instance, violence was fine.
1,000%. I remember, oh God, she would hate she'll never know about this. She would hate me telling the story. My mom, I was a huge comedy nerd growing up. I came to horror very late. I had the Martin Lawrence You So Crazy album on cassette, and I listened to it on a Walkman because I knew I couldn't listen to it out loud. Mm-hmm. If I listen to it out loud, that shit is getting shut down. Mm-hmm. And so my mom then one day grounds me because she said, I was standing outside your door and I heard you listening to that album. So just the mere finding of the cassette, because I definitely wasn't listening to it out loud. Yeah, that shit scars a person. Mom has always cared about like checking in on like, okay, what are we loving? Like when Buffy the Vampire Slayer was my favorite show, she asked to borrow the DVD so she could see it and watch some of it. It was just like, oh yeah, this writing is amazing. All right, fine. I was also like, I'm 20, you don't get to decide. Actually, I was in my 30s at that point, I think. Like, you don't get to decide what I watch. But I appreciate you taking an interest.
I'm slightly jealous listening to this. This must be wonderful. Your parents took an interest and asked you what you were into?
Mom did.
Okay.
Dad traveled a lot. Okay.
Papa was a Rolling Stone.
I know that feeling. Well, but it's interesting because that was my parents' approach, especially my father's. And Joe knows this story. Like, I have a younger sister that's 6 years younger. So when I was permitted to see R-rated films like Sleepy Hollow, and then if my younger sister wanted to see them, I had to, which was a horrible burden to bear, that my father would be like, all right, take some money, go see this movie, see if it's okay for your sister. Okay.
Go see a Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, it was close to that. But my sister at the time, she would have been, I don't know, 11 or something. And I really want to see Sleepy Hollow. I really want, okay, fine. And so I had seen it, and my dad said, well, what's in it? And I said, well, Dad, it's the Headless Horseman, and it's a modern. He takes people's heads off, Dad. And my father literally didn't miss a beat. Going, is there sex in it? No, there's not a lot of sex in it, Dad. It's Victorian era type stuff. Literally, the next word, a lot of foul language. No. I mean, they're very Victorian appropriate. There may be a dam or something, but and he goes, so what happened? I was like, well, there's an axe that removes the head at one point, and he goes, well. This is a quote from my father that I will carry with me till either dementia or my grave takes it away. Your sister needs to know that if her head is hit with an axe, it is going to have an impact. And so he let her go see it. And I'll never forget that, because it was like, okay, but if I would have said no, it's every other word is the F word. It's like, oh no, she ain't seeing that. But yes, violence.
So much sex. Oh my God.
Yeah. Sex and language, that kills it. But if it's just violence, my dad, which explains like my dad's obsession with explosions. He used to rate movies by that moved quickly. There was a lot of explosions. Okay, Dad, thanks.
But orgasms don't count. Okay, Dad, I see where you are.
This is
explosions of a different kind.
So you graduate high school and you've got this film bug going. Why did you go to NKU?
Well, I went to the Army first, and that was a horrible mistake. Because I grew up a film nerd, I read and listened to and watched a lot of interviews with filmmakers. And a lot of filmmakers, when they're interviewed, will tell you, if you can be happy doing anything else, do that. So I spent my 20s trying to do anything else. I ran bars and restaurants. I worked in politics. I was a door-to-door salesman for a while, which was even worse than the Army, possibly. I really tried to do just anything else, and nothing took. And I was 29 years old. I was living alone in an apartment in East Walnut Hills, Cincinnati, with my dog, Lizzie, who was just the best, and she died. And the first time, like, I went home and she wasn't there. I was working third shift at DHL at the time, so I would record stuff and then get home in the morning and watch it. And she would, she's a dog, she didn't give a shit, so she would wander the apartment or sleep on my bed. But when I watched Friday Night Lights, she would, for whatever reason, climb up with me on the couch, put her head on my leg, and watch it with me.
Mhm.
And so the first time I watched Friday Night Lights without her, I really kind of acutely or clearly saw my life, and I said, I can't keep doing this. So at 29, I said, all right, if I'm still doing this at 31, I'm just going to kill myself. And I decided to sell as much of my stuff as possible and move to LA and pursue film. And I was also in the midst of a multi-year depression for myriad reasons. And when I got to LA, I thought, if I move 2,500 miles and just sit in my room, I'm going to feel pretty stupid. So like just that got me out. And I started volunteering in a screening series for Creative Screenwriting Magazine. And after doing that for a few months, the guy who was the editor of the magazine, who ran the series, asked me if I wanted to do an article. And I said, oh, yes, very much so. Yes, please. Because I've been reading the magazine forever. So I covered a little movie called Management that almost no one's seen, but they liked the article. And so I did that for a few years and eventually became a contributing editor to the magazine, which was when I interviewed JJ and Wes Anderson and Edgar Wright and Lars von Trier and a bunch of people.
Oh, you got to tell us Lars von Trier. So once you get done with this, you've got to go back. So
yeah. And then print died, and the checks were already kind of small, and then they became tiny, and I was like, well, this is just not worth my time. So I transitioned to production. But yeah, that was kind of what kickstarted it. And I PA'd on some TV shows, and I got a gig on a feature, a no budget feature that was shooting in Louisville, Kentucky, called Split, which is a bowling romantic comedy written, directed by Jamie Buckner. I was not supposed to be the second AD, but they lost some people, and Battlefield Promotions being what they are, I was the second AD on my first feature, which was a great education because it was like a front row seat, and I got to see where money needs to go versus where money goes out of habit. Because Jamie and our producer Lyman Creason and a bunch of people had been working in kind of had been working in the studio world for a while. So, and they had thought that they would have a 7-figure budget as opposed to a 5-figure budget. And yeah, I just got to see kind of the obstacles that came with that. So when it was done, and that's where I met McLeod, because he was acting in the movie. And we kind of instantly became good friends. And that led to us like wanting to work together. I'd written a script that he really liked that that just never got off the ground. And then I wrote another script that we really liked that we spent a year trying to make and got close, and it didn't happen. But that year living together, pursuing this, kind of solidified the friendship. And taught me a lot about him and his approach. So like, I helped him put together his reel at one point, and like watching all the stuff that he had done, because he's so talented, he gets cast to like play characters who have lost their mind or are losing their mind. And I was like, yeah, you're really good at it, but I want to see you fall in love and save the world because you are a mountain of talent. And so, when A Ghost Waits became a viable project, it was just like, great, I get to write a showcase for my best friend. Let's do this.
It's so funny because I made that comment earlier. A lot of times people just they get cast their best friend, especially in low budget, because they know they can get them and they can afford them and they're great, but they don't necessarily translate to film. And he does. He really carries the movie in the best possible way. And that's, I wish we could have had him on the show too. I didn't even think about that, but he carries the movie in the best possible way. And I believe him. And he just, like that fine line we were talking about earlier, that not only you walk as the director, but he walks as an actor, of funny, affable, not a dumbass. No. It's just, that's so easy because it's just so easy to go over here and go for the easy gag, for the easy joke.
Well, when we made this, like I said, we spent 2014 trying to make another movie and got very close, and I took it very hard when it didn't happen. And I went back at the start of 2015 to Northern Kentucky to kind of figure out what my next move was. Because I really had just no idea. And at that point, I felt like an existential mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I wasn't supposed to be here because I just didn't feel functional. I saw everybody else making life work, and it felt beyond me. So, yeah, I got to a point where I thought maybe I should just take myself off the table and let somebody else have this spot because they can probably use it better. But I've always wanted to make a movie, and it's the only thing that I feel like I might be able to do. So let's just take a shot at this. Let's, we know we're not going to have a lot of money, so let's not make that an excuse. And let's honestly take all the excuses off the table, because I needed to not be able to hide behind anything. I needed to know that I can make a movie and do it well, because if I can't, I do not have a backup plan. And that is, that's once you absolve yourself of the fear of failure or whatever it is that's keeping you from doing what you want to do, whatever the insecurity or the doubt or the fear is, once you take that off the table and you say, I'm afraid I'm not a person, it's remarkable what you can achieve. And part of that is because I think a lot of people make a movie because they think it's cool and they want to be at the party and they want to be a filmmaker, and having a movie is cool, but like making a movie is not cool at all. It's humbling and humiliating, and you have health scares. And the biggest lesson I learned in the course of the 5 years it took to make A Ghost Waits is that you really have to humble yourself before the movie. The movie is the boss. You are not the boss of the movie. So the movie will tell you what's working and what's not. And you might love your ideas, but the movie will tell you if it's a good idea, if it's an idea that works or not. And you have to remain open to hearing that and recognizing it. Because I definitely fought, like there were some scenes that I just fought tooth and nail because I was like, but my idea's so good. And we were just like, not for here.
Kill your darlings.
Yeah, it is that. And because I like, one of the really fun things about talking about this movie is, it totally turns into therapy because I was at such a dark place when I made it. Like the process of making it taught me to trust my instincts, and learning to trust my instincts beget self-esteem and self-worth and self-confidence. I remember telling somebody on a date like a bunch of years ago, like, I think confidence is a myth. And now I'm like, oh no, it actually does exist. I just had no glimpse of it at the time. But I never would have gotten there had I not taken the very hard path of making a no budget feature. And having the support of like an amazing person like McLeod and, Corey Loeffler and Brian and Jen Price and, a bunch of friends who really were there for me at very dark times.
Well, but it's really interesting because you talk about being at a dark place. But I mean, to me, and again, the movie is oddly affirming. It is, even given how everything, it is all about, finding your place and finding that it's okay to find that place. And maybe everybody else doesn't understand it. Not wanting to spoil the end of the movie immediately, but I think one part of the film that really, another part of the film that I thought was beautiful was that phone conversation at the end. Like, I'm sorry about the mess, but it's also this, nobody's going to understand this. And as I watched that scene, I thought about how many times have I had, I work in Mississippi, but I live in Kentucky. That's my life. And that's the way. And it's one of those things, even my wife says, other people don't have to understand that. That's us.
Right.
That's for us. And so watching that scene really played out for me because I can't explain why I've done what I've done to people because there's no words for it. And so that part of the movie, I literally, again, it was another scene where I'm like, this is just, there's a lot of beauty to that thing, to that scene where it's like, if this is what has stopped me from, as a friend of ours used to say, if that's what stops you from climbing the bell tower, then good. That's your thing. It's good. It's fine. You don't have to worry about what the town council says. Do what stops you from climbing the bell tower.
There's a scene in the movie Walk the Line where Johnny Cash and his band are in the studio for the first time, and they're playing a song, and the engineer just stops them. He says, fellas, no one wants to hear a bunch of guys they've never heard of play a song they've heard too many times.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're walking down the street and you're hit by a truck, and you're lying in the ditch bleeding out, and you have time before you die to sing one song that speaks to your time on this planet. What's that song?
Yep.
And because of the state that I was in, that was kind of how I wrote A Ghost Waits, was just, I may never get to make another movie. I may never get to do any of this again. So what is something that I can say that feels true and that I don't feel like is being said elsewhere? So my two favorite things in the movie, I love this movie, but my two favorite things in this movie are the scene after they get rid of Rosie, when he kind of opens up to Muriel, and that voicemail, because those acutely were the two scenes where I thought, okay, if I never do anything else, I am happy with this being the legacy I leave.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think there's something to those scenes that, like I said, it had a resounding impact on me, just watching it and just knowing that, I've done stuff and I don't know what's next. And as we often talk about on the show, we've tried to make movies before, and I dream of writing a novel and all of that stuff. And I have ideas. It's those endings that keep getting in the way. But that being said, those pesky endings, I can give you a pretty good beginning, a fair middle. It's that ending that eludes me usually. But I think that's, I like, the idea that, depending on how one views the afterlife, depending on that, there's no one way, and there's no, I can't live to Facebook expectations of my high school friends. I don't want to live to their expectations. I don't want to. And so again, there's so many parts of this movie that I was like, oh man, this is great. And it's and we don't need sorry to ruin your expectations, Dad, but we don't need the explosions. I don't need, I don't need everything.
We need catharsis. And that's kind of a thing that like McLeod and I have learned is like what we do. It's why we collaborate so well is, we both believe, as McLeod recently said, life is too short not to play and not to ask big questions. Stories need catharsis. And the ending of this movie, especially, originally it ended a different way. And the original ending just felt small to me because, and I think this is a problem with a lot of modern American cinema, especially independent, is it just feels like when you get to the ending, everything the characters thought at the beginning has been validated. If you're angry, it's an angry ending. If you're happy, it's a happy end. Like it tends to feel very static to me. And the one thing I knew I really wanted was a transcendent ending. And there's no transcendence in oh look, I was right. Transcendence happens when you open yourself up and let in other perspectives and kind of, again, remain humble. And, you might know a lot, but you don't know everything. And I my favorite stories are, I was surprised by this. I had given up on love. Love exists. I didn't think I could leave my hometown. I left my hometown. Whatever it is. People are currently shitting on it, but like Field of Dreams has a very cathartic ending because the whole thing is I missed my dad. Hey, look, there's my dad. You know, Magnolia is a 3 hour and 10-minute movie about I miss my dad. You know, that the dude like, well, you're never gonna get that. So just make an opera and, you know, have it look great. Yeah, I think cinema is really exciting because it gets to pull from so many different art forms. And I think because of that, we have a responsibility to make it bigger than ourselves.
Well, and again, so many lines in this movie really resonated with me, and I've got to ask, because, you know, it's writing the movie and doing things like that. One line that just I'll be honest, I paused it and was like, that's just a great line. It is a mockery to use scars that are not your own.
Thank you.
That is because and again, I tie this to what I see in the world. You know, I think about the social media always comes to mind. The amount of people that go, oh, and let me tell you all the tragedy that has happened. And it seems like we bounce between those two worlds. It's either I'm going to present how everything I do is awesome, and we package that reality, or we go over here and be like, everything is awful and only happens to me. And so I'm simplifying probably, but that line of it's a mockery to use scars that aren't your own is, I was like, oh, that is, again, I think it gets to, you know, the idea that what actually causes us pain, what do we actually experience for pain, and then when are we just reacting because, well, this is what people expect, or this is what, you know, I have to project that this really hurt, and the back and forth of that. And again, so many other applications for that line. It made me stop and go, that is just great, like Shakespearean level commentary on several different things.
Well, thank you very much.
So again, there's just a lot of that in the film that I really did appreciate.
Well, thank you. And your point about social media is really interesting, because I do think we spend a lot of our time trying to define ourselves by our best moments while we define others by their worst. Yes. And, you know, the middle ground is a rich terrain where most of us live all the time. Yeah. We do things that we're ashamed of, and we do things that we're proud of. And I heard a quote recently. You can't be afraid to reach into the dark to pull another hand into light. Like, I think it is very easy to allow ourselves to be uncharitable and to treat others as a monolith because we're tired, because there's a lot going on, and language is evolving and society is evolving, and it's just a lot. But if we say that the world is bad because people do bad things, and then we allow our things because the world is bad, all we are doing is agreeing with those we profess to hate. And it is exhausting, and it is exhausting on many levels. But I really just firmly believe that we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we have to, you know, I'm a big believer in you must be the change you want to see in the world. Remain kind. Above all else, remain kind, because, I mean, not only do you just not know what other people are going through, but why not? Like, if we want goodness in the world, what chance does that have of existing if we ourselves are not good and are not kind? If we are constantly passing the buck for behavior that we want to see, what chance does any of us have?
I have a follow-up.
Okay.
And this is unusual because I'm usually the one with all the questions, but I've had a hard time getting in with James, which is actually, it's cool for our listeners. So I don't know how to talk about the ending without giving the ending away. That's the problem I'm saying here.
Give it away.
Well, first of all, I want to say we're talking to Adam Stovall, Ghost Awaits, and you can find that Ghost Awaits on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon. You can rent it there.
Find it.
And you should find it.
Go find that movie.
You can also buy the Blu-ray, which I worked very hard on.
Well, and I will be, like I said,
and we haven't bought the Blu-ray. We'll do that. So I just want to
Most
say
people
that
don't have media players anymore, but if you do, honestly, I worked very hard. As you can see over my shoulder, I'm a big physical media nerd. So
we
I
did
worked
a whole
very hard
episode
it.
on it about 7 episodes ago.
About how
About
it's essential.
tangible. Disney
Yeah.
cannot re-edit my version right over there.
Yeah.
iTunes can't pull it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that being said, go out and get the movie. Now, if you haven't seen it, I kind of I want you to not listen to it now because we're going to talk about the end. So I'm trying to
Should
figure
put it in
out.
the notes. What's the time? We'll figure out the time code and like put it in the notes where they can skip ahead to.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
I know how podcasts work.
You should totally produce this show because I don't want to do this.
We make stuff up.
I do not have
I
the time.
had a producer and they quit like 70.
I'm so tired.
150 episodes ago. I'm sorry. Here's the thing: is I can't figure out, and I think, and this is a compliment because it's obviously gave me a visceral reaction that I have thought about now for 48 hours, off and on.
Is this the thing you texted Kathy about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because and she didn't text me back, so I wonder if she's offended. I hope not, because I really like her. I really do enjoy talking to her. But I think that I'm projecting myself too much on your ending, because the reason I think is because once we get to that point of he's made the decision and he pulls the Crown Vic or the Grand Marquis, I can't remember what it is, into the, I think it's a Crown Vic, right? Into the garage to turn it on and close it. My problem is that I don't know if it's because I was also raised religious in a background. I don't know if that's still back here in the lizard brain. If it's because it just bothers me that it seems a waste of life. So I hope you don't get offended about any of this stuff.
Not at all.
I think I really wanted to talk to you about this. And as we were leading up today, I was writing down some questions. I'd have a meeting. I'd write down another question or type it down and send the document to myself. And I was like, man, I want to talk to him about this, but I don't know you. And we're not that kind of show to kind of go at it with the guests. We can't be, and we're not that. We want to have a good time and talk to you about movies. But it bothered me. And I remember telling someone afterwards, well, would you like it? I was like, yeah, that ending. Why the fuck does he kill himself? He has a life to live. She lived her life. This is I mean, they're at totally different points. Why does this have to happen this way? This seems like and I'm wondering if it's my person, if it's this, because you bring yourself in with everything. If I'm projecting feelings I have about suicide, and then we start talking to you, and we start talking about the issues that you've had, that you've been completely open with us about, which you have no idea how much we appreciate. I know we bullshit and we ramble and go back and forth, but we so thank you for that. That you're that honest with us and sharing with us. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. How do you reconcile that in your brain of, I went through this. It makes a little more sense to me now that that's what you were going through when you wrote it, but he has a life to live. Do you see where I'm going with this? She had her shot.
Yes, I do.
Do you see my criticism from my perspective of, she had her shot. Who's to say they can't? I don't want to. I know he wants to be with her.
Joe. In an odd twist of fate, and I know this never happens on this show, but I went the exact opposite. He's living now.
See?
He was going through the motions before. And putting it in the perspective of, it's to me, making it, I guess, more symbolic, but what is, I read it as what is expected versus what is needed. And so I kind of played with that idea of, again, and like you said, I bring myself into it.
We all do.
But it was one of those things where, I think about all the times I've done what I quote unquote was supposed to do. Be the reliable person, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then you stop one day and be like, okay, well, is this it? Is this how I want to live?
Yeah.
Forever.
Also,
So I'm going to go exact opposite of you on this, Joe. I know, shocker.
Before you talk about it, Adam, the thing is I feel so we've done several short films, and we did a movie called Reminiscence before Hugh Jackman. So it's so funny 17 years later to see on the big screen Hugh Jackman's Reminiscence, which is nothing like ours, by the way. But which deals with similar, James agreed, our short film, I think was our best short film, deals with some similar stuff to this, only it's at the end of life, dealing with what we've went through. And I was remembering that and thinking that young man, because we changed, would have enjoyed your ending now more than this 43-year-old father of a 4-year-old does. Does that make sense? And
yeah, I mean, you know the story about.
And I'm less religious year by year.
Well, you know the story about Spielberg saying that like he could never end Close Encounters now the way he did then because he's father, selfish. So he could never have a character leave their family. Yeah.
No, because he's selfish. Right? Richard Dreyfuss gets on that thing and leaves. His kids are back here and his wife's here. He has a responsibility to those. So now
Jack doesn't.
Do you get where I'm going with this? But it's been, here's your compliment, even though I was calling bullshit. I was like, I don't know about the bullshit ending. And she didn't respond. But that was my visceral reaction. And 48 hours later was thinking about it. And I'm now talking to the director, expressing that as I've analyzed it, is it because I'm in a different place? Is it because I do these things at different conventions? And a few years ago, I admitted on live radio that they were doing something because it's a paranormal and horror movie that I don't believe in ghosts or any of that bullshit, which went over not well at all. Silence in that room. When the lead guy who does the main room goes, I don't believe in any of this bullshit. It's great on the screen, though.
Don't know why we don't get
good content.
It's great content. There's tons of books here all over the place. It's great content. Now that I've said all that, I'd like your perspective.
Sure. Let me start by saying I will never seek to diminish anyone's feelings of grief and loss. If you have lost someone to suicide, I am here for you, and I will never tell you you're wrong. I will never diminish your feelings of grief and loss. There is a lot of art and culture for people who have lost someone. There is staggeringly little for those we lose. When you make a movie for very little money, the great thing about it is that you are freed from the idea that you have to fill, like you have to hit the 4 quadrants. You don't even have to hit one quadrant. I told McLeod at one point, like there's a musical called Title of Show, and there's a song in it called 9 People's Favorite Thing. I'd rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing. We made a movie for 9 people because the freedom that I had was to say something that I wish someone else had said. I wish this movie existed when I was 15 years old. I would probably be a healthier person if it had. Because I am acutely familiar with suicidal ideation and everything that goes with it, and because I know how close I've come to not being here today, I feel like I can speak to it. And especially, I like when I was writing this, depression gets represented in film, but it tends to be the very dramatic sorts of depression, whether it's bipolar disorder, manic depression, all that stuff. And
looks
I
good
get
visually.
It. Yeah. But that's not my experience. My experience of depression is that it's wallpaper that's very good at convincing you don't deserve walls. And
that's a good way.
I wanted to talk about that. And the nice thing about making a movie is like I have 80 minutes of your attention, because when I try to talk about it in interpersonal conversation, especially suicidal ideation, people just say, that anybody should ever do that, which doesn't help anything, because if you are struggling with it, all that does is further other you. Because you're struggling with something existentially that you can't talk about with anybody, because nobody feels comfortable or confident or even able to discuss. So because I have been down this road and know the terrain fairly well, I kind of feel like it's my moral imperative to talk about it, because I know how much it means to me when people talk about the things that I struggle with. So if I can be that person for somebody else, I mean, tell me a better legacy to be a part of. And we've had that happen. We've had, I remember like after Fright Fest last August, somebody posted in the Facebook group, I need to talk about the ending with Ghost Waits. I worry that it romanticizes suicide and glamorizes it and will make people do it. And somebody else, and I don't feel like I should chime in because I made the movie, but somebody else responded saying, I struggle with this. And a movie is not going to make me kill myself. A song is not going to make me kill myself. A TV show is not going to make me kill myself. But a movie, a song, a TV show can make me feel seen and heard. And so instead of worrying about what the masses, the majority, are going to think about an artistic decision, I worry about the people that need it. And I congratulate those who don't struggle with this, because they're leading a much happier life. But I am here for those who are struggling with this, because getting to tomorrow isn't easy, and it's not a failure if you don't. And I think we grossly need to change the language of how we discuss suicide, because it's not selfish. What's selfish is making somebody else's struggle and death about you. And I will die on that hill. So yeah, I will never get to do this again. Like, what's funny is I get asked about the black and white a lot, and it's like, no, I'm never gonna get to make a black and white movie again, because the studios, like, unless you're Quran or Payne or Fincher or like, you don't get to do that.
And you're doing it for
I got
Netflix.
to make one, yeah. But this, I will never get to talk about this again. And and people have asked like about remaking it with a budget, like, oh, the story is so good, we'd like to make this with names and a budget and see what a Ghost Waits could be with whatever, and it's like with studio polish, and it's like, have at it. Like, I will gladly cash the check. Yeah. But there's no way you retain the ending once you make it $1 million film. And I'm the kind of asshole that if I only get to say something once, I'm going to say the shit out of it that one time. That's my answer.
From Mel Brooks, if you're going to climb the mountain, ring the bell.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, you mentioned that there was a different ending. Can I ask what the different ending was, just to be that complete nerd?
No, I mean, you don't say that and not expect. So the original ending was
oh man, interdimensional beings.
An alien waits. All right, now I gotta make
it. It's the sequel.
So I actually do have an idea for the sequel. So the original ending, a dominant idea with ghost stories is that ghosts are here because of unfinished business. So that's where I was kind of starting from. And originally, Jack helps Muriel resolve her unfinished business, because that's what Jack does. He helps. And Muriel is able to then leave, because that's what people do. They leave Jack. And that's not a bad ending.
No, but that is very ending. Hollywood.
Yeah.
I've seen that picture. Yeah. I would not have thought about that picture 48 hours later.
No. And honestly, once I had seen the Bangsons workshop their show 100 Days in Cincinnati at the No Theater over the Rhine. And it had just stayed in my head. And I was out one night having some drinks with my then girlfriend, and she was telling a story, and I stopped her. I was like, hold on a second, because in my head I suddenly saw The Garage, and I heard the song Years Go By, and I was like, I have this ending. Like, this is the ending I want. It feels big. And I had to run and get a napkin and write it down. But once I knew, I also just loved music, and I always knew that the soundtrack would figure in hugely. So once I had the song, and I'd already met the Bangsons while standing in line at Coffee Emporium and asked them if I could use some of their music for the movie. So once I had a song that I felt reasonably certain I could get, then it was like, oh, okay, this is a movie. This is a movie that I can be proud of for a very long time.
And you wrote some of the lyrics for one of the songs, right?
Yeah, the song that Muriel sings to Jack
Yeah.
in the final dream, my friend Margaret Darling and I wrote.
I was going to say, and that was actually something I was going to bring. The soundtrack is effective.
Yes,
it sticks. And I was sitting there. My wife came home from work and said, we're recording tonight, and I had class right before this, so I was rushing around a little bit hectically. But then I found myself just before class going through a couple lyrics in my head, and I'm like, oh great, now they're stuck there, which is again is another testament to the impact one viewing had, and why I'm going to have to watch it again. But I literally was sitting there going, I doubt it, but does Amazon have this soundtrack available? Because I need this.
Nope.
Because it is. I mean, and again, knowing that you were working on a very small budget and everything, like you said, the music becomes part of it. The fact that she's a singer, I mean, it's organically part of that story, and that. So your movie had an impact on me. I'll just leave it at that. And it was.
That means the world to hear, honestly. Like, we made this, it's such a small movie, and I made it on my laptop. Like, we really had no idea if it was going to find an audience. And I'm not being falsely modest or anything. We genuinely had no idea if it would find an audience. We didn't know if anyone else was going to see this thing. Fright Fest changed our world.
Yeah.
And because Fright Fest led to Arrow, and I mean, guys, I'm a kid from Florence, Kentucky. I don't know anyone who's ever made a movie. I didn't grow up knowing anybody who made a movie. You feel like you're on Tatooine, like it's so far away. And I've known my entire life this is the thing that I wanted to do. And like I said, once you take away whatever the insecurity or the doubts or the fear that is that's keeping you from that, but it never, I edited this in a small bedroom in Lakeside Park, Kentucky, like right, just, about a half mile from Thomas More College.
Mm-hmm.
You really, like, I can't underscore it enough. Like, we had no idea. All told, this movie cost $44,000.
How'd you raise it?
So when we spent 2014 trying to make another movie, we had met an investor who was really excited to make something. And when that fell apart, he asked our friend Nick Thurkettle, because they worked together, and this is MF Thomas I'm referring to, asked Nick, what's Adam up to? What happened with that movie? And Nick said, well, that couldn't happen, but he's got some weird haunted house idea now. And we got on the phone, and I told him I hadn't written the script yet. I told him the story as I saw it. He said, okay, I can give $15,000. And my mom had said, well, you have a number, because for years, like, what do you want for Christmas? A budget for a movie. And she had said, when you have a number, let us know. And so I called her one day and I said, I have $15,000. If you guys can match it, I think I can make a movie. And the next day she called and said, we talked to our accountant and we can do that. So we'll send the check tomorrow, or we'll send the money tomorrow. And I was in Plum Street Cafe with Brian Price, and I just started crying. And then I was like, oh shit, now I have to write the movie. Like, whoops. But, and then McLeod and I put in 14 of our own, which is the same McLeod. I did not put in he put in most of that 14. But like, we didn't give ourselves any excuses. And I have learned that, like, man, there's always an excuse to not do something. And there were so many points along the way when apparently people would have been okay with me saying, I think it's as good as it's going to get. But I remember telling McLeod, it's never going to be perfect, but I think we can at least make it the best version of itself. And now, I mean, yeah, when I watch it, there are things here and there that's just like, oh, I wish we could have fixed that. But I'm immensely proud. And because we didn't know if it would ever get out into the world, that was really our goal, was let's just make something that we're proud of or we're excited by. And at the very least, I can show people just in terms of like, hey, I can write a movie. You know, maybe this will lead to writing work. Had no idea that we were going to win awards. But we did. And I don't know. It's just, it's like, I can't explain it. We just worked really hard.
No, you should be so proud, because James and I have failed so many times. So we were so envious. But you did no idea that the ultimate accolade would be to be on Bonehead Weekly. that was going to happen on a Thursday, September the 23rd. I'm joking.
It's all downhill from here.
It's all downhill. That's what Nick Meyer told us, the writer and director of Star Trek 2.
Oh, Nick Meyer. I love Nick Meyer. I think about, because he did Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
And I think about Star Trek 6 all the time.
Yep.
Like multiple parts of it. Shields. Like, I think about Star Trek 6 a lot.
Adam, we're going to have to hang out the next time you're in Kentucky, and I'll buy you dinner and we'll have a few drinks. We need to make this happen.
You know, not to, you know, I hear you guys do something called Scarefest. I'm down. I love horror conventions now that I've been to one.
Well,
I'm more than happy to come home and take up a little corner of a room somewhere.
I don't own that bastard. So I am the moderator. Kathy and I talked about this a little bit the other day. We were messing. In fact, I had no idea we were going to strike up a friendship. It was cool. But I get that a lot. Some people will go, can you have that? And can you have that? Because I also do Lexington Comic Con and do the main room there. So yes, thank you. It's okay. It's not bad for a failed filmmaker. I'm a professional hanger-oner. I think I said this to you the other day in a message. A professional hang-on. So I get to hang out with people that are really cool.
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be back in Kentucky in a couple of weeks, but I'm down in Central City, which is very far from Lexington, because that's where my dad lives. But yes, absolutely. One of these days,
you let me know.
Get back there,
and I will put in a word about the Scarefest thing for you. Also, I don't know if you know this or not, but I've already recorded the review. I do a weekly review for Scarefest on their Scarefest TV show that they do every Friday. And my review this week is your movie.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I mean, I hope it's a good one. Now that I know your feelings on the ending.
No, but I hope I put it as wasn't very succinct, but I wanted you to see where I was coming. But the best compliment I could give you, and I hope you understand as an artist, is that 48 hours later, I was arguing with myself.
Yeah. No, that's...
And whereas you told me the other ending, and I said, oh, I've seen that movie a 24 times.
Yeah.
But your ending, the thing is I really think it's where I'm at in my life that I should view it that way.
Which makes me wonder where I'm at in my life that I've went the other way.
But no, I mean, I think it's great. There's like
dry clicking that revolver, James. We do jokes.
Oh God! Oh Jesus!
As long as it's dry clicking, clicking.
He is you, Adam. We have made these horrible jokes to one another for 20 years. So, but go ahead.
I mean, yes, I have friends too. You know, we say reprehensible shit to each other.
Right.
No, like I have plenty of movies that like when I was a kid I loved, and now I watch it's like oof. Or I mean, honestly, even Tarantino, like he was a huge part of my development as a film fan. But to be completely honest, since Kill Bill, I haven't really I can't really get into it.
Really?
Even Time in Hollywood, which a lot of my friends love, like I think he has a real gift for the tactility of a film and how it feels and moves, but his storytelling leaves me very cold these days.
Oh, yeah, I feel
yeah,
the
like Inglourious
opposite.
Bastards, I think is a great film to study, but I don't necessarily like watching it.
I feel that's weird. Yeah, I feel the opposite. It to me, I don't know that it gets any. It'll never get better in Pulp Fiction.
Right.
I,
I mean, Jackie Brown is probably his most mature work.
I mean,
not even probably. It's definitely his most mature work. But like, you know, it's also just. I mean, like, The Graduate has been a huge part of my life, and kind of realizing that like Mike Nichols and Robert Altman are so responsible for what I find cinematic between MASH and Nashville and Shortcuts and just everything.
yeah.
Like, yeah, and that's great. Like, I mean, it's the fun part of film is like people hate Frida Kahlo paintings. Like, it's fun when you're just like, oh, this thing that forms the firmament of my soul, you think is nothing. Like, that's a fun conversation to have.
But I really liked your movie. I just was challenged by the ending.
Well, I was going to say,
welcome.
But
yes. Seriously. Do you know how hard that is? I'm so old and fucking jaded. Do you know how hard it is? You know how much shit I watch here and end up fast forwarding every 20 minutes going, I know where this goes. I know where this goes. I know where this goes. Our friend who's not
it's the most validating.
Our friend who's not on here tonight, Chad, his wife is a wonderful person, but he can sit there and goes, well, he's going to say blank. He's going to do this. And she looks at him like he's a soothsayer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
When I worked for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, I was covering festivals and I would watch like 300 movies a year. And you just get to a point where you're like, I don't think I like movies anymore. Like, I want to burn the 3-act structure to the ground. And that made me, that is kind of where it started, this whole idea of like narrative playfulness of like, well, genre is just a thing. And, we can do whatever we want as long as it emotionally feels real. Because when it all comes down to it, my second favorite movie of all time is Gremlins 2. Like, if it feels right to you,
because that's the most Joe Dante movie ever made.
Rivaled only by John Goodman's monologue in Matinee when he talks about why horror works.
But you're talking about one scene.
Yeah, I know.
And
Gremlins 2 is so angry at its own existence. It's amazing.
I rewatched Matinee. I agree with you. I completely agree. I rewatched Matinee a couple years ago because I loved it. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. I was like, man, he could have cut 10 minutes out of this picture.
Yeah, but I'm glad he didn't. I like Matinee.
It was just one of those things, you're talking about. You look at it something 10 years later and go, boy, pacing in this, maybe 5 minutes here.
But
Joe Dante is another. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, isn't there also something, as I lean over to show my Blackbeard's ghost behind me, isn't there also something fascinating about film? Because I know structurally and cinema, Blackbeard's Ghost is not an epic Citizen Kane film. But I'm excited that I got to show it to my kids, and they were like, well, that's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool concept. The ghost has to apologize for what he did when he was alive. And I'm like, you'll go to school. And they went to school and they were like, my dad showed me this movie called Blackbeard's Ghost. And literally every kid and most of the teachers were like, what? What is your dad showing you? What is it? And I'm like, it's an old Disney movie. And they're like, what? Okay. So
yeah, it's funny. Like, and I don't know why I think to talk about this, but as I talk about making this movie and especially talking with people that it really meant something to, like
it did.
Filmmaking is such a silly endeavor. And a thing that I don't like, that I kind of keep it in my mind of just like, because I'm working, McLeod and I are working on a couple films now that, it's like, oh, maybe this will be what we do next. And when I get really in my head about it, I remember that because this came together so fast, because we had the money and then I had to write the script very fast, I typically name characters and title a piece very late in the process. I write a lot of ABC scenes, and I couldn't do that here. And because we had a bunch of documents that we have to make for casting and whatnot. So in order to do that, I went home and I opened up my Tom Waits discography and I named every character after a Tom Waits song. And the movie is called A Ghost Waits after Tom Waits. And no one ever asked me to change it. Like, filmmaking is ridiculous. You have no idea what's going to work.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious because for 6 months I read Llama Llama Red Pajama in my best Tom Waits impersonation.
I was say, well, God's away on business.
Can that be the add-on to this episode?
What, Llama Llama Red Pajama? Nobody wants
read by Joe as
read by Joe.
Tom Waits.
I want to hear it.
Running across his forest, mom. Sorry.
It's
Anyway, and by the way, God bless.
I
us
love a
because
bad Tom Waits impression. It's my favorite thing.
No one. Most people don't even know who the fuck that is. So at least we're having this conversation.
Philistines.
Speaking of writing, though, and that actually is something, because like I said, I dream of writing a novel, and once again, I just need to finish one. That would probably be a good start. But that being said, when you're writing for film, and knowing that in this case you're writing for a very low budget, how does that affect the way you write? Whereas I think about novels, I don't have to justify anything. I don't have to think about how it's going to look. I just, the world's made of stars. There you go.
Man, screenwriting is weird. You are writing a logistical document that should make people feel things. Like, try writing an airplane manifest that makes someone cry.
I was gonna say, so an Excel spreadsheet that has me tear up.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Because McLeod and I had this conversation, this very existential conversation one day about what is a movie. And I said, a movie is a scene, the people that play that scene, a place that scene happens in, and recording implements to document the playing of said scene. Anything else is indulgence, because we knew we weren't going to have a lot of money. So, and I also like classic film and TV. I think it's fascinating to watch when they really had no idea what they were doing and they were inventing a medium whole cloth.
Right.
And when it comes to horror, I tend to be an old horror person with the innocence and the uninvited. That's kind of my jam, far more than most things made these days. And what's great about classic film and TV is that the lessons that you take from The Twilight Zone are still sound. Like, all of them still work. So if you know that you can't afford a lot, that just means you can't afford effects. It means you can't afford a lot of locations. It means you can't afford a lot of crew, a lot of cast. But it doesn't mean you can't afford to make a movie. You just have to focus on the drama. You focus on the characters and the story. I think Tolstoy in his diary wrote that, like, the four most important parts of a story are, in descending order, are transition, context, character, story. Because you can find good actors. You don't have to have $1 million to find good actors. You just have to work harder. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that you will not outwork me. Yeah. I don't sleep a lot. I will find you. It's the Michael Jordan thing. Like, if I'm not practicing, somebody else is, and when I meet them, they will beat me. Like, yeah. I just, if you can't afford to pay someone to do a job, that job still needs to be done. Which is why, we shot, it's like 20 days over the course of 3 years. There's 12 days principal photography in August 2016, 4 days pickups in April 2017, and 4 days pickups in February 2018. I shot the pickups. So, which is part of why it's in black and white, is because 2 different cameras, 2 different shooters, 2 different lighting packages didn't quite cohere the way I wanted it to. But again, it really all comes back to, don't allow yourself any excuses to hide behind. The whole thing, like, William Goldman has the line, "Nobody knows anything."
Yeah,
that's true, but that is too often used as an excuse for subpar work.
Right.
And we weren't in a position to allow ourselves any excuses.
Yeah. But the effects, the lack thereof, are so effective in the movie. Like when he's talking to himself, it looks great. The just
Thank
the
you.
just the light from underneath and the wind look great. And when it's in black and white with the simple makeup, it's extremely effective, and it's all that new movie needed.
I was saying, speaking of which, I love that talking to yourself. See, where he has something like, "Well, this will be fun." Like, how often do you actually get to do that? Like, how often?
Yeah.
I always joke, and I tell, I've even told students this. I was like, "Listen, if you're aggravated by being with me in a classroom for an hour and a half a week, imagine how aggravated I am. I have to be with me 24/7."
Oh yeah, everywhere I go, there I am, right?
And that's what I mean. And so I was like, and I always tell them, because even when I do these online classes, I'm like, if you hate the sound of my voice, I have to edit this video to post to, and I have to post it. And so I hear myself, and I hear when the Kentucky twang comes out. If I get aggravated, it's only worse, et cetera, et cetera. And so I always tell them, I was like, so that scene's another scene where I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to meet myself, but if I was going to, well, let's make this something. We're going to do it.
That was the last scene that we shot, and the dreams were very important. And the first couple approaches didn't work, and they consistently didn't work. Like, notes were always, this doesn't work, to the point that they're like, maybe we just lose the dreams. It's like, well, no, we need the dreams to buy the third one, which is hugely important. Like, at one point there was a talking dog in this movie. That's how much it changed over time. So and McLeod and I were trying to figure out what the dreams would be, and I don't remember exactly how the idea came about, but so Charlie Kaufman once told me Synecdoche, New York happened because Sony wanted to make a horror movie with Charlie Kaufman and Spike Jonze. Mm-hmm. And Spike Jonze left to do Where the Wild Things Are, and that's how Charlie ended up directing Synecdoche. But after that meeting, literally all they said was, we want to make a horror movie with you guys. You figure out what it's about. And Charlie went home and said, well, what scares me? The relentless progression of time. And once you hear that, and it's like, oh, well, then horror can be about anything. What scares me? And what I realize is that I am kind of constantly chasing actualization. And what scares me is not being a person, because that's how I felt for so long. And so what's a better way to articulate that than to have someone literally talk to themselves? And it's a very unforgiving version of themselves. So yeah, and at that point, like, I was writing it like on set, just like, this is what we're saying. So even though everybody's like, oh, it's a Shining homage, it's very much not. I have a rule that you should never remind the audience they could be watching a better movie. But
James, that's where we fucked up, bud.
I was gonna say
that's where we went wrong.
We need to start making children's movies. Evidently, we won't make the mistake of alluding to things. Like, very slim chance that I'm going to move into a Schindler's List homage in my children's movies, so I should be okay.
It'd be amazing if you did, though.
Yeah, well, and that's the problem. I'll accidentally do it regardless.
Yeah. Like, no, it's very important. They're all wearing red coats.
I almost made a red coat joke, and then I thought, oh no.
On the way to Bubblegum Mountain, all the
one girl's wearing a gray coat. Yeah. No, like it like this, and honestly, talking about this movie often turns into therapy, because so much of it is just me talking. There are parts of this movie that I did not know I was answering a question about the movie. McLeod would just say, like, what about this? And I would just answer honestly. And he's like, okay, that goes in. Like, well, shit. Like, I didn't expect that to go in. Okay. Yeah. And
does that have,
I don't know. And like, that can often lead to disaster, but it didn't here, thankfully.
I'd say, does that have a different type of reaction then, as you now, this is out in the world, right? And you're seeing, as you mentioned, things on Facebook about it, but then you have people say, oh, that struck me, like that is. And so does that does that humanize your own? Humanize may not be the right word. Does that humanize your experience more? Or?
Yes, it does. I have a problem with dissociation, and George Clooney, another proud Kentuckian, said one time, if you're going to believe them when they say how good you are, you have to believe them when they say how bad you are. So I'm very proud of what we made. And like I said, that was the North Star. That was the goal. So when the reviews started coming in and they were very good, it's very moving and it's very validating that people get what you're doing. But you can't let that like run your day. Because we've gotten plenty of bad reviews where people are just like, there are no boobs and very little blood in this movie. I do not like it. And okay, like that's fine. Like Joe Bob has a huge audience.
The trailer misled them.
So many boobs and blood. Oh my god!
Why was this movie subtitled "Boobs and Blood"?
You could have done it like a Corman picture that Joe Dante would have edited the trailer for in the late 70s. There would have been X amount of boobs and blood from another movie that wasn't in that one that Corman was showing.
This movie was advertised in Hustler as a ghost waits for blood and boobs, and I feel that I was misled by Hustler.
24 would have picked us up if we'd misrepresented the movie.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the question now.
Well, no,
if you were a toy in a toy box.
If you were a type of tree.
Wind up robot.
I do have one last question, and we probably do need to wrap it up. This is almost 2 hours and I got to work tomorrow. But the question is, you were talking about your second favorite movie being Gremlins 2, The New Batch, which I think is amazing. What's number one? Because I have a hard time answering this question, and I get it a lot. And you're a filmmaker, so you get it even more than I do.
True. I honestly don't even think about it anymore. Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing, Gremlins 2, MASH. Those are my big three. Beyond those, it kind of gets into like probably The Graduate, probably Requiem for a Dream, probably, there's a lot. There's a lot. Pulp Fiction's in there somewhere. But I feel very comfortable with Do the Right Thing, Gremlins 2, and MASH.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting mix of films too.
It is.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me one time I was wrong because 25th Hour is just as racist but better, and I was like, "Weird, I'm talking."
Hold on. Just as racist but better.
By the way, the only thing I remember about 25th Hour, if I remember correctly, is the line, "Champagne for my real friends, real pain for my sham friends." And I watched the film, and the only thing I remember, however long later, is that line.
It's a great movie. Like, there's the monologue in the mirror that Ed Norton gives, which is what the guy was referring to. There's the amazing ending that Brian Cox narrates. And there's so much. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is probably my favorite actor of all time, like, is just great as this sad sack teacher. He played a lot of great sad sacks. Like, if you've never seen Happiness, his performance in Happiness, everyone's performance in Happiness is amazing. That movie will ruin your day. But yeah, I don't know. People watch movies weird. Like, I talk to some folks and it's just like, all right, like, I don't know how that. I have a John Carpenter shirt, which is a stack of VHS tapes with a bunch of his movies in it. And when I was flying back to New York from Kentucky a few days ago, the TSA agent said, the best movie in there is Escape from New York. And like, it's Halloween and They Live and The Fog and The Thing, and and I was like, okay, like, you're allowed to think that. And he just kept on like, They Live is such a pedestrian film, and like Halloween, like, whatever, it has a following.
He said the TSA agent said They Live is a pedestrian film. Now there's a lot to unpack there. One is, why is the TSA agent going that deep? Two,
I mean, you take off
pedestrian.
Your shoes,
it's like a line
belt.
from Family Guy. I'm sorry, I found The Godfather pedantic.
Yeah, it's shallow and pedantic.
Shallow and pedantic. I prefer the money pit.
I have kind of learned that a lot of people watch movies in a very Pokemon way of gotta catch them all. And so they're not really analyzing or giving any thought to subtext or mise-en-scène or any of that stuff. It is really just like adding to their letterbox list of I have now seen 500 movies. I have now seen 600 movies. Like it really just seems like a consumption of content. And this was an older person. Generally when we kind of stereotype generations, we say that it's the young people that aren't really watching movies, but this guy was old as shit and did not care. So
I love Escape from New York as well.
It's very good.
It's not even an argument. It's just like, why would you even make the comment about They Live?
Assault on Precinct 13 is on the shirt. And I think Assault on Precinct 13 is incredible. Like, I remember watching it, and when the little girl is holding the ice cream and gets killed, I just remember like, this movie is not fucking around. Let's do this.
But that's a perfect example of that in Halloween, about having very little and doing the most of what exactly the movie needed.
Yeah. Oh, John Carter. I mean, I don't know where on the list, but like John Carter is a pretty amazing director, and kind of made all the more. I mean, like In the Mouth of Madness and Prince of Darkness are just, oh god, he's so good. But like now, where he's just like, I don't know, I have beer money, y'all can go to hell. I kind of get it.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
And I've watched so much tape. Well, not tape. I mean, and so many videos, because that would be a dream for us to have him on the show. And I will tell him, look, this is what you say. This is what you say in every interview. You can just say it to me when you're done. I've got to go meet my drug dealer. He says it in every fucking thing. YouTube it tomorrow, Adam. Most of them, all the conventions that he didn't do for years until the last few years. Well, I got to go meet my drug dealer. So yeah, I get it. Just sitting on the couch, and
I live in New York. My drug dealer comes to me.
We live in Kentucky. We can't talk about it.
It is though. I think that, and going back to what you're saying though, I think there's a Patton Oswalt line that I often think about, where he says the difference between being a fan in your 20s and being a fan in your 30s and 40s is that he uses music as an example. In my 20s, if somebody said, "Oh, I really like Nickelback," I would take time out of my life to tell them why they were wrong, and they never changed their mind. And all I did was rant. And he goes, the difference is now in my 40s, I'm like, oh, well, all right then. And yeah, you just go.
It's so nice now to like, I'm a big fan of don't lament what's not there, celebrate what is. And it's so nice when you find your tribe. It's so nice when you find somebody who like also loves a filmmaker, like if you have an obscure filmmaker that you love and they love them, or conversely, if you have a very prominent filmmaker that you cannot stand and they also cannot stand them, like it's just nice. But when I meet someone who loves someone I cannot stand or can't stand someone I love, it's just so easy to say, okay, and never think about it again. I don't know if it's because I'm tired. I don't know if it's because I'm mature.
It's 40.
But like,
it's
40. I never have to think about this again.
Yeah. And the other thing
it's like those people you're talking about who are ready to die. Don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Like, white goes into the beard and you just stop giving a shit.
And Matt, you're 40, times it by 2. Imagine being 80. You get it. It's like, shit, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Until you see a guy in the line at an airport, and then you decide to give a weird shit. Yeah.
I got you get that one. 85. I got to go meet my drug dealer or God. Just pick one.
And actually, if I'm lucky, they're the same guy.
Yeah.
Listen, it's about time you transcend to heaven. But before you do, one good hit of this.
So speaking of transcending, James, did you have a last question? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just, again, thank you for doing this and thank you for putting this out there. And as somebody that, again, I don't parallel experiences, but I've had anxiety and depression before and things like that. And I agree with what you said. It did put it in perspective. Putting out there something like this to say to people that, you're not alone if you've considered this, I think is important. So thank you for that.
Thank
and
you.
thank you for giving me something to think about.
This has been an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time, especially films of this at this level. Like, we live and die by word of mouth, and even beyond that, it's such a pleasure to talk to people who know what the hell Lakeside Park is. Yeah, this has been really nice, and
I know. I didn't mean to go off on the
appreciate it.
Applebee's thing earlier, but like, I've been drunk in that Applebee's more than once. And
well, and like I said, and to your point, no, I am going to be singing the praises of this film for a while, because I want other people to see it so we can have conversations like we've had tonight.
So we'll be sharing it. I want you to tell us all the places where can you get the Blu-ray.
Oh gosh. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from Arrow's website. Although they are UK based, so I would recommend, like, I think it's Diabolique DVD is the US distributor. So it'll actually play on your player. And then, yeah, if you don't have a Blu-ray player, you can rent it on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. But I will say, if you can buy the Blu-ray, please do, because when we got acquired by Arrow, their huge, their big thing is premium home video releases. Kathy's favorite home video release is their release of Basket Case, which is why I now own that. They're a really great company in that regard. And when they said that they wanted to do this, my job disappeared. My day job is directing audiobooks, and that dried up completely during COVID. So when they acquired us, I had a ton of time and coordinated the special features. So I'm really proud of every bit of it. And I even put together the menu when you put it in, like the first, I'm a very proud dad. And a Blu-ray dad, and I do not have children.
Not that you know of.
No, I just don't. I can't even make that joke.
I'm going to start making that bullshit rumor all over the town, bud.
You go to hell.
I know, Adam. Adam. Oh, but again, Papa was a Rolling Stone.
You mean that very sad man that no one wanted to be around in his 20s?
And by the way, that shit was catnip. Let me cheer you up.
So speaking of, what are some of the special features on the Blu-ray, if you don't mind me asking?
We have 3 commentaries. One is McLeod, Andrews, and me. One is cast and crew, and then the last one. I had this thought that I've never heard, like, a personal commentary. I'd love to hear Edgar Wright and his best friend talk about what it was like to make Shaun of the Dead from a personal perspective. Mm-hmm. So Corey Luffer, who's one of my oldest and closest friends, she and I did that commentary together. There are 8 cast and crew interviews. There's a video essay by Isabel Custodio, who runs an amazing YouTube channel called Be Kind Rewind. There's an outtakes reel. There's footage from our world premiere at Fright Fest Glasgow, where I was a complete puppy dog and totally overwhelmed and just cried my way through a Q&A pretty much. And I think there's even more stuff that I'm blanking on, but we really because there's a store here in New York that it's called Book Off, I think, where I would just walk through the aisle, and I wanted to make something where the cover would make me stop and look at it. So Sister Hyde did an amazing job on the art, and then you turn it around, and there's so many times where you turn it around to see what the special features are, and it's the movie in 1080p and the theatrical trailer, and you're like, you movie, that's not really that's not special features. I can find that on YouTube. I wanted to make something that I would want to buy even if I'd never heard of it. I'll take a flyer on this. So it was really cool to be able to paraphrase Gandhi, build the Blu-ray I wish was in the world. I feel like he'd like that legacy. But if you don't have that, then we're available for rental on a lot of sites. And then Arrow has its own streaming channel, arrow-player.com, which has amazing genre and cult stuff. And they're pretty, I think it's only $4.99 a month, and there might still be a code for 3 months free. I don't know. I
actually may have to check that out. I wasn't aware that they had their own channel.
It's really good, and it's very respectful. the boxes don't come up until the very end of the credits. They really respect the work of the filmmakers, which is a thing that I now give a shit about.
Yes.
So,
because you put a lot of work into it. So as
Yeah.
we always say on Bonehead Weekly, who do we pay, James? The
What?
artist. I was
Yeah, no.
dancing Christ. He had one job.
You were doing the
Phil
Ellison
Tippett,
line.
you had
You were
one
doing the
job,
Ellison-
dinosaur wrangler. You let all the
every now and then
dinosaurs
Karl
out.
Malone didn't catch the pass from John Stockton.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I
what
was gonna
know.
say it's
Uh,
go back to my highlight reel. I normally get it, but no, pay the artist, pay the
We
talent.
say that on
pay
here
the,
all the time.
I was
take
going
the-
with pay the writer is what I was thinking because that's the Ellison line.
But yeah,
yeah,
pay the writer. Pay the
and
artist.
honestly, if there's if that's not a satisfactory answer, ghostwaits.com is the website, and we're all on social media at Adam Stovall, at a Ghostwaits, at McLeod Andrews, on Twitter. Like we're pretty accessible. So if there's any questions or whatever, like please feel free to hit us up. I'm also on Instagram, but that doesn't seem as big for conversation.
No, but now that I know that you're there, when I start doing the quotes on Twitter again, I'll just start tagging you so you'll block me.
I would never.
Please stop.
We're friends
You're not
now.
helping us. Please stop. You're not helping us. Please stop.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it
No,
up.
that's lovely. Yeah, it's only been 2 hours.
I'm sorry. It's been a ghost way. I want you to go out and check this movie out. This movie was thoroughly enjoyed by James and I. It made me question a lot of things and how I feel about life, how I
And
feel
now that I know it's
about
Tom Waits
suicide.
linked.
And now I know Tom's Waits, and how I feel about what may or may not be after this. So I can't give you a better compliment than that, man. Check out A Ghost Waits. Adam, you are welcome on the show anytime you want to come on.
Thank you very much. And I think Diabolic DVD is about to do a thing where there'll be a code you can enter that gets a signed copy of the movie. I'm about to sign like a bunch of copies. So if that's a thing that you like, yeah,
I like signatures, but I want you to just here's creepy. Just come hang out in the basement. All right.
This is how I die. So
yeah.
Well, at least this is recorded, so you'll have.
You guys. I'll sign it in person. We'll get together at Applebee's and get drunk.
No. No, I'll tell you a story.
No, you're in Lexington. We're gonna hang out at Two Keys. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, that closed.
Yeah, COVID victim.
Oh,
all right.
No.
It's
Two
almost
Keys
2
didn't
hours.
Make it through COVID?
We gotta stop. This has been Bonehead Weekly. You and I'll talk as soon as we push stop. Buy his damn movie, A Ghost Waits.